Wow.
Hi.
By introducing yourself and the outlet. Thank you.
Yes, Dana Abercrombie, the Koalition. Thank you so much for speaking to me. This was
Uh-oh.
absolutely incredible. Um, so what I wanted to know was when creating this series, it's also about the evolution of a social media platform with the evolution of Black change. How do you make sure that stays balanced?
Right. I don't even know if we necessarily were focused on making it balanced. We wanted to make sure we told the story of Black Twitter as truthfully as we could. But you can't really tell that story with also telling the story of Twitter as well, right? Because both are kind of influencing each other. But really what's happening in the doc is we're telling three stories, right? We're telling the rise and influence of Black Twitter. We're telling the sort of rise of Twitter parallel to that. But then the third story is really the story of Black people within America and how that's all weaved together. And so I think we were trying to balance all three, but really we were really focused mainly on like, what is this coming of age story we want to tell of Black Twitter, and what are the moments that best represent that?
Yeah.
So for all three of you, was there a specific story that was important that it remained in the documentary?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I would say, I don't know if we ever approached it like that. I think there were things that we knew, like Trayvon is a big turning point in the story, right? Because it's the moment of uh, in any coming of age story where your sort of hero is dealing with something darker or serious for the first time, right? And so for us, we knew that was kind of a pivotal moment that obviously would always kind of be there. There were other things that I think we debated on how much they would be there or not. I mean, there were certain things that we were like, okay, like fun things. Like at first, Paula Dean was in it, then she was out because it didn't really fit the story. Then it was back in, right? But those are like small other things. Like we talked about the Queen Elizabeth thing and out and in and out and in. But really, it was like more so these seminal moments of like we know. I would say the one thing that we did wanted to make sure was in there was January 6th. That was a thing debating of okay, how does this fit in? But again, what's Black Twitter's role in that, right? Because it was the first thing that I think on the platform that didn't like it wasn't us doing something directly or immediately impacting us in the way that Trayvon was or Ferguson was or certain things like that, right? Where it was like, oh, that's them. So how are we talking about them, right? What is Black Twitter's role in that? And so I think that was the thing that we always sort of needed to find what's our role in it as opposed to just making fun of it because there's obviously there's that part but what was Black Twitter's role in that. So I think those were the questions we were more so asking ourselves.
Another one for me that I think was important for us to capture was like what was it like to have Twitter and Black Twitter really thrive at the time of Obama's presidency and sort of capturing the celebration and that energy of what that felt like as a Black American, and how that then moved the platform and our place on it forward. So I thought that's like I think essential to kind of capture that period of time in that story.
I agree.
Yeah, for me, I think I wanted to make sure we started at the right place. So for me, I was really big on starting with, around the hashtag, your Black win, which for me was sort of this inciting moment when I felt like Black Twitter first really, really came together in a sort of uniform way that was more representative of what it would become in the years that would follow. So I think for me that was really important that we got that first moment in there. And then from there we could sort of build on that story.
It's almost like, your Black win when I think about it. It's almost like that was like the Big Bang
Yeah.
in some ways, you know what I mean? Where it's like
Yeah.
that was the way it all sort of exploded literally. But it's also like the moment of, I would say, like, again, we were kind of gathering as like planets.
Yeah.
But that was we all kind of have hit and exploded. So
That's how we found each other.
What was really fascinating to me is you go through the evolution of Black voices in the docu-series, but you also posed the question of what happens if Twitter itself comes to an end. Why did you feel that question was important, even though it spent the documentary showing no matter what, our voices will never be silent?
That's really true.
Yeah.
I think that the reason why I'm so sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I just lost it.
no,
Sorry.
I think that's the reason why we ask it, right? Which is I think there's a lot of the misleading thing is that the platform is what gave us the power. right? And that isn't true because we were going to find each other. That was just the where it happened. It wasn't like we sought out, where are we going to gather? We're all going to gather on Twitter, right? That wasn't the plan, right? So I think that's and it's interesting doing interviews now where people go, what's next? And it speaks to the question you just asked, which is, it doesn't really matter what's next, right? We're going to find or repurpose or use something that doesn't really matter, because when all those things align again, we'll do what we do in those moments, right? We did it in the 60s. We certainly did on Black Twitter, and we'll do it in some other way. So for us, and again, even when we decided when we came onto the doc, Elon did not own the platform yet, right? So it was still kind of the way Black Twitter was operating, right? So as we're making the doc, he buys it. So now we do have to ask a slightly different question, which is, and then you see all the changes that he was making subsequently as a thing. So now a different question does get asked, like, oh, it's going away, right? I don't know if he would have asked that question.
That's true.
Without that, 100%.
Like without that. So I think in some ways it's really horrible what happened, but in some ways it was to me, sometimes I think in our culture we get comfortable, and I think it was another reminder: don't ever be that comfortable, because it can go away too, right? And I think he just kind of put a fine point on Jason's impetus to even write the article, which is so many things are in the internet, are here today and gone tomorrow. That if we don't tell these stories now, then they're going to be gone to history, right? And so to me, it just kind of crystallizes the exact point of, it's not really about the platform at all.
And then kind of lastly, for anyone who wants to answer, how do you see Twitter in the face or in the age of Gen Z?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's so hard to sort of prophesize where social media is going, where Twitter is going. Social media is at a turning point, a real sharp turning point. I think when Elon Musk came and took over the platform, we then began to see a lot of other platforms trying to rise up and take over its influence and saying, hey, maybe we go to Spill, maybe we go to Somewhere Good, maybe we do, something else. But I think the next moment is going to call for a different type of platform. I don't quite think that's TikTok. I know it's really huge right now, but I don't know if that's quite going to capture. There's a lot of hype on TikTok, but I don't know if these sort of fleeting trends will have lasting influence in the way that Twitter has, in my eyes. But it's kind of the platform and the power is always going to be the people, right? Mm-hmm. The people are the platform. Yep. So wherever they want to go, I think that's what's going to happen for sure.
And what are the needs of Gen Z? What are the things what are the challenges that they're going to be faced with, that they're going to need a platform, or they're going to need the community and need to find each other to be able to, deal with whatever the next crisis or celebration is. So
I will say TikTok has been really great for raising awareness around sort of modern day issues in a way that sort of does remind me of the way that the Black Lives Matter movement did around 2014, 2015. But social media is always changing and moving and morphing into different things. So I'm really excited to see what Gen Z does with it. Mm-hmm. But I will say I think they're going to have more power and more ownership over their stories in a way that we were starting to take power and ownership over our stories that Twitter gave us, right? Like, I think this next generation is definitely going to have way more authority and way more agency in how they move and what they say.
Yeah, because they're growing up in a place where all of these hashtags exist. Just, have you been telling us, how your kids see things and how they live with Black Girl Magic. They live with Black Lives Matter. They already know how to mobilize and they live that way. So very, very excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah, I'm curious too, because obviously in the time of when Black Twitter was sort of coming up, nobody really knew what Twitter was. Twitter didn't know what Twitter was trying to be, right? So there's a lot of pliability in terms of what it could be and how it could be used, and there was also not a sense of what can come out of that. And I think obviously what you see in the doc and obviously through Black Twitter are all these sort of ways in which Elon's reaction to buy it is a reaction to control what certain groups of people get to say or do, right? And I find it interesting also that TikTok is also now in a battle congressionally about what it's trying to be either. So I find it interesting that there's a lot of big control over what groups of people want to say or do or express themselves right now, right? Because I think they are seeing, that came out of that. That came out of that. We got to find a way to squash that, right? Or put that energy down. So I'm curious again how the Gen Z will come out of that and go, we need to circumvent it like this,
Yep.
or we need to create something totally new that's not even a social media thing, right? So I'm really, curious about what it'll be as well.
Thank you so much for speaking to me. Wonderful documentary.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.